Hey, what's up everyone? Ashley here. Welcome to Ashley Talks Movies. So I'm back with another movie review, and this time I'm going to be talking about Bond, James Bond. So No Time to Die is out in theaters, and it's been a long time coming because this movie has been delayed a number of times, mostly because of the pandemic. And it marks the final outing for Daniel Craig as 007 himself, James Bond. Now, I'm a huge James Bond fan. I've watched every single James Bond movie that's ever been made. And so I have a lot of feelings about No Time to Die, being the huge fan that I am. And I've always been a huge fan of Daniel Craig as James Bond. So yeah, there's a lot of things I want to talk about with this particular review. Now, before I get into the full review, while I have you here, if you could do me a favor, if you could hit that subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. Also, feel free to jump into the comment section, share your thoughts about James Bond, about No Time to Die, or about Daniel Craig as James Bond. Okay, so on to the review. No Time to Die marks the final chapter for Daniel Craig as James Bond, and the movie definitely plays into the sentimentality factor of this, the closure factor of it. It really is, closing the book on this particular character played by this particular actor. And, there are a lot of things that I think work really well in No Time to Die. There's some things that don't work. We'll talk about that too. But let's dive into the things that I thought really worked well for this type of movie that is, essentially a send-off for this character and for, Daniel Craig playing this character. One of the things that works really well is the direction. This movie is directed by Cary Fukunaga, and I have been a huge fan of his since his work on True Detective. It was an HBO series that starred Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. Fantastic series. At least watch the first season. It's absolutely amazing. And his eye for framing shots and how to deal with going from scene to scene is definitely on display. Fukunaga is, I think, a really underrated director. So I was really happy to see him take on something big like, a James Bond movie. And he does such an amazing job. This movie looks spectacular. And especially when they're going from location to location, the different countries and different places, he's able to really capture those moments, even the heartfelt moments to the action sequences, like frame by frame. This film is just amazing. The other thing that works really well in this movie is Daniel Craig as James Bond. I mean, I've been a fan of his since he took on this particular role back when he did Casino Royale, which is my favorite James Bond movie. And I feel like in No Time to Die, he's probably at his best as James Bond. I'm not saying that No Time to Die is the best James Bond movie. I'm just saying that his performance in this movie is probably one of the best he's done in the entire franchise. Also want to mention that probably two things in this movie that I really enjoyed ended up being two things that were completely new to this film and this film franchise. And that was the characters played by Ana de Armas and Lashana Lynch. Let me just say, Ana de Armas is amazing in this movie. She's only in it for a very brief amount of time. And she plays one of the agents that Bond comes in contact with when he's in Cuba. My goodness, I really wish she could have been in this movie a little bit more because she was amazing in the role. And it, again, just a short amount of time, but she was fantastic. It's just, I was just really surprised. I mean, I like Ana de Armas. I really liked her in Knives Out. I can't wait to see her in more things. But, her character in this movie was just fun and interesting, and you didn't get to spend a lot of time with her. And it was kind of a shame, but she was fantastic in it. Also, Lashana Lynch plays the new 007, and she's fantastic as well. And I really liked her interactions with Bond, especially the tension between these two characters, because they are essentially, in similar roles. And I really enjoyed just both of them, Lashana Lynch and Ana de Armas. They were great. Now let's get to the things that aren't necessarily bad, but I could have used some work. As I said before, I watched all the Bond movies. I enjoy Bond. Some of the movies are a little problematic. A lot of the things in some of those movies don't really hold up nowadays. And, you know, I understand that. And one of the things about Bond movies is that the plot was always a little bit convoluted. That is no exception here in No Time to Die. The plot is just convoluted. I've just come to accept that with a James Bond movie. Plot can be a little overly complicated. Some of it doesn't really make sense. Motivations and things aren't really clear sometimes. And that's a little bit more the same here with this movie. So I'm not going to really knock the movie for that per se, because it's kind of standard with Bond movies. It's just, maybe that's one of the things they can improve on in the next iteration of Bond. It's like not make the plot so overly complicated and convoluted. Another problem I've had with James Bond movies is that the villain has a facial disfigurement. I don't know why they're doing this with the villains. I don't know if it's done on purpose or if it's just happening by accident. I almost feel like it's on purpose, and I almost feel like they do this with the villains because they're building the suspense and, you know, tension around the villain based on their facial disfigurement, and that's why they're kind of menacing and scary, not just their motivations, but because they have a facial disfigurement. That's lazy. That needs to stop. Hopefully in the next iteration of Bond, the villain won't have a facial disfigurement. But it happens here with this villain. The villain here in this movie is played by Rami Malik, who I adore. I think he's a great actor. And again, can't wait to see him in more things. But his villain is kind of weak. And I don't like that they're using the facial disfigurement as part of this like villains trope that they have going on. It's just unnecessary, and it's really not compelling in any way. So that was a kind of a no for me with the villain. The villain could have been a lot stronger, and it was a shame because you have Rami Malek, who's a great actor in this role, and he could have done so much more, but that wasn't the case. But, you know, beyond that, I feel like No Time to Die is a very fitting send-off for Daniel Craig's James Bond movie. Some people might find it a little overly sentimental. It can be at times. I mean, again, this is a character that has, you know, sort of reached the end of this particular story, right? Like Bond has retired at this point in the movie. You know, he's living his life a certain way, and that's going to be reflected in how the character is portrayed and also how the movie frames everything. And so, yeah, there's a lot of like sentimental, heartfelt moments that some people might feel is overdone. I don't. I think it was a nice balance. I think it works for this character and for this film. And I do think that, if anything, the biggest takeaway from this movie is what happens next with Bond, because I feel like when Daniel Craig took over the role as James Bond and they did Casino Royale and every movie after that, James Bond was a very different kind of James Bond. It wasn't the same Bond from the Sean Connery days or even the Pierce Brosnan days. This was a different type of Bond, and all the movies after that reflected that. And I don't think that Bond can go back to how he was, whoever plays him in whatever instance they do, because it's just a very different type of Bond. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the effect that Daniel Craig's Bond has had on other Bonds to come really is the big thing. And like I said, No Time to Die, I think, you know, it's a good movie. It's entertaining. It has some flaws. As a fan, I enjoyed it. So there you go. So those are my thoughts on No Time to Die. If you've seen the movie and you want to share your thoughts, you can do so in the comment section below. While you're here, like this video, hit that thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe to see more videos like this.